brand into a cultural conversation that makes sense and pop out big ideas from that practice. So one of the most exciting programs we just worked on was a program for Johnny Walker. It's been a client of ours for a long time. And Johnny Walker was launching a new advertising campaign, you know, the whole Keep Walking America program. And they asked us to bring that idea to life through a public relations execution in the fourth quarter. We're trying to reach the young male millennial. That group is very interested in whiskeys, but it's declining a little bit. So what we were able to do is look at the cultural conversation that was raging in the fourth quarter. And of course, what was that cultural conversation?
People getting drunk on election night.
Well, no. More about the wall.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
what was going on at the wall. Everyone was talking about the wall, right? And so, and what we wanted to do is dimensionalize what we meant by Keep Walking America. So we put the two together, the wall and Keep Walking America, and we came out with a concept to create a video using Wilbur Valderrama. He's a Mexican-American, Colombian-American, and we brought him down to the wall, and we had him walk along the wall and talk about what it means to be an acculturated Hispanic in the United States, but having this wall in between these two cultures, and how he felt about it, and how half of his heart lives in the southern part of the world and the other heart is American. So it was a really powerful video series that we shot with him, what a wall means to him. And then we were able to service that content out using digital and social means to talk about our perspective on the wall and what it means, what it might mean to one group doesn't mean to the other group. So it was a really powerful piece of content. Again, this kind of whole integrated approach, cultural conversation, cross-brand messaging, powered by digital, social, PR, advertising, really worked and broke through in the fourth quarter during a time when people wanted to understand what about this wall.
It's a very timely topic when you think about the 84 lumber campaign around the Super Bowl, in which they were going to have the wall being very prominent in their advertising, and they took a step back. Did you wonder with the Johnny Walker campaign whether it was too political at times or too much of a hot topic?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that's part of the tension, you know, but we actually had a role in that conversation because we're about Keep Walking America. Just keep going, keep walking your walk, you know, following your heart. And, you know, to bring it to a minority audience and have them understand what's going on in their heart. What do they mean by keep walking? Don't let anyone put you down because you might have, you know, you're not from this country or there's a pseudo wall between us. You know, just keep walking, keep following your heart. That's the spirit of the Johnny Walker campaign. So, you know, bringing it to life through, you know, Wilder's story was really important to this brand.
What kind of reaction did you get?
Great reaction. Right away, you saw social media blowing up about, you know, that's great, but we love to hear this. You know, it really made me proud of who I am and where I came from and how I can live and, you know, both be a Colombian, a Mexican, and an American all together. There's no wall in between who I am.
Now, there must have been some critics, too, that didn't like it.
You know, not so much. You know, we didn't get what some of the brands are getting now, where like, I'm going to boycott Johnny Walker. You know, we were supporting an idea. You know, the idea of not immigration, but somebody who has a lot of texture in their background. So I don't think we went too close to the flame with immigration or policy or, you know, naming names like Trump, the brand name.
I've noticed that they do a lot of bilingual advertising.
Yeah.
When you do activations for them, is it English and Spanish?
Yeah.
Just English? Yeah.
At Hunter, we have a very large Hispanic practice. One of our partners is a Mexican-American, and about 10 years she saw the need to speak to her own audience, so she created a practice for us, spaced both in New York and Miami. And many of our clients realize that, you know, the Hispanic audiences are a huge opportunity to reach out to them and share messages and share, you know, shared values. So, yeah, we do, I would say about a third of the work that we do at Hunter includes outreach to Hispanic markets.
Okay.
And spirits is a big Hispanic opportunity. You know, rums and beers and tequilas and whiskeys, as you can imagine, are very popular, you know, across all audiences. And we do a lot of work in that space.
I wouldn't have guessed it's as high as 1/3. That's probably
in our agency, yeah, because our practice is really strong. So we do that Hispanic work for Post Cereals. We've done it for Johnson & Johnson, for certainly Diageo, for Gallo. A lot of the bigger brands are understanding the influence of the Hispanic audience and really looking to us for insights. How do I do that right? It's not just language translation. It's really understanding the value set, finding the insights. Very often it is the same type of messaging, but with a subtle tweak, you can really make an impact.
Okay, let's go back to the integrated work for a second. Does this mean you're also hiring a different kind of person than you were a couple of years ago?
That's really interesting. I think, yes, we need a lot more specialists. I see, it used to be you hire like a general PR person, but what we're finding is we need specialists in entertainment and activations. You need experts in, social and digital media. So it's creating a lot of new career paths for people in the agency business, which to me is really exciting. You also need people who understand the legal implications of what we're doing, so we see that part of it growing, people who can understand that side. So yeah, it's a good time to be in the agency because you're not just in a siloed position. There's a lot of specialties you can grow into or be hired for.
How much is social, digital, things like that?
How much?
In terms of new hires? Are you looking
I would
for folks
say,
like that?
I would say for every traditional PR account executive that we hire, we're hiring almost one-to-one.
No kidding.
People that are more native to it and actually want to stay in that space and figure out how to, maximize impact on those platforms, what's coming next on that platform. It's exciting to be around those people because they're very, they're very interested in, as much as not a millennial, looking down at my phone bothers me. Like, why is everyone looking at their phone? I actually want them looking at their phones all the time because they're discovering things.
And I was going to say, when you say native, you mean the elusive millennial. I always enjoy when people talk about millennials. It's sort of like in a National Geographic episode when people talk about the being on safari and finding the elusive
creature.
There they are. What do they bring to the table that you might not get from somebody my age or somebody a little bit older?
Lots of ambition.
Yeah.
Lots of ambition and optimism, and a search for justice, which I find sometimes our business can help them, reach that sense of justice, and then other times our business, squashes their sense of justice.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of things that don't happen the way they think that should happen, and they, well, why not? Why can't we fix that? Sometimes we just can't.
Well, that makes sense in a way because it's such an activist time in a lot of different ways.
Justice is a very important value, and I think as an agency owner who employs so many people, I have to always remember, how do I show justice if I can't show it in larger topics? How do I show it on a micro level? Because it's an important value to them, and I appreciate it.
Okay, so what are you looking forward to for the rest of 2017?
For 2017, okay, well...
What do you expect to see?
Well, I expect to see a lot of chaos. I mean, we've already seen a lot of chaos, and watching people understand chaos. And I think it's exciting because, it was kind of ongoing, everything was done the same way. But every day we're introduced to a new form of communication, and I'm not putting a value judgment on that form. All I'm going to say is, how do we deal with that? What should we do? What are the right answers? Because the game is changing, and how should we react as communicators, and what should our advice be to people? Give
us some chaotic examples of, you mentioned new methods of communication, new technologies, things like that. What are you seeing that you didn't see before?
Well, this adversarial relationship between our government and our media, that is really, really surprising. Usually the fundamental, tenet of communication is you have to respect the other's position. You might not like it, but there's got to be this fundamental respect. And right now there's no respect, and as a result, things aren't getting done, and it's becoming just, the pot is just boiling and the lid's coming off. That concerns me because I do believe in decorum and respect, and we've always had that, and now gloves are off. So how are we going to come back from this? It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, I see that. I think you're probably referring to, between the president specifically and the White House press corps. And my initial reaction, and granted I'm a member of the media myself, but my initial reaction was when you see aides like Steve Bannon declaring that they're going to take on the media and calling it an opposition party and things like that, is that if they want to fight with the press, they're really going to get one. And that might turn out to be something more than they bargained for.
Right.
I don't know if you feel the same way. Or...
I do, and they keep saying, don't poke the bear, don't poke the bear. But the bear, in this case, is the media as well.
Right.
Don't poke that bear either, because they have a lot of power. They really do. And, do they abuse their power? Some people say they do. Generally, I don't think we thought that up until now, but apparently it's being seeded into our heads that the media does. I don't know how we're going to recover from this.
We shall see throughout this year and probably through the next couple of years. Food is obviously a big part of your business. Food trends that you expect to see in 2017.
Well, it's interesting with 17, we're losing a huge advocate in food. Michelle Obama her agenda was food and eating well. 8 years we had the First Lady advocating, gardens at the White House and great food and, eating healthy. So what I'm interested to see is, how her not being in that seat affects food policy and some of the initiatives on a macro level that affect the food industry. I think what's really exciting, and I've been doing food PR almost 30 years, is how food has jumped from just the food pages to the front pages. And it's fascinating, especially the millennial culture, and even Gen Z, the one that's coming, they're fascinated with food, all facets of the food world. It's culture for them, it's entertainment, it's fun, it's social media content. Food is such a lifestyle now. It's not a thing anymore, it's a lifestyle. From eating, cooking, sharing. So it's really exciting because food marketing is booming. It really is, because everybody wants to put their food in front of these people and they want it photographed and they want it shared. And there's a huge receptive audience to that. Food is not just a thing, it's an experience.
When did you start to notice the beginning of that food social media culture?
Actually, it's interesting.
Especially on Instagram.
Yeah, the food porn, as we call it. So at Hunter, we do a food survey, food study. For 14 years, we've been studying what are the headlines that are most interesting to Americans in food. And about 4 years ago, we added what are the food media sources that are most important to them. And of course, social media has taken over all the traditional, we used to do cookbooks and, food newspaper pages we used to get our recipes from, but now the #1 source for people to get their recipes is Facebook. And in one single year, there's been one phenomenon that has even changed the recipe, how you get your recipe. Do you know what it is on social media? It's those tasty videos.
I'm a really bad cook, so.
You're a really bad cook. What you have to do, Frank, is watch those tasty videos on Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure you are. So in one single year, through our food study, we've seen that millennials have relied more on those tasty videos that BuzzFeed invented, where they show a quick, assembly of a recipe and then they produce the recipe. More people get their recipes now from that single source than from cookbooks, newspapers, which were all the traditional delivery mechanisms. So, and then of course Instagram.
Oh, that's interesting. How long are those videos?
I mean, maybe, what are they, 15, 20 seconds?
Yeah.
30 seconds maybe? And what they do is they quickly show you how to assemble it. And I think that's filling such a huge void, because back in my day we used to learn to cook in school and then your mother taught you. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. So to see a quick video where people are hands-on with the food and you see the quick recipe and you can, oh yeah, that looks easy, I can do it. This video, instruction is just taking off, and recipes are being used more because people see it happening. So it's a testimony to what social media is being able to do to spread this.
It's interesting because it also fits the brevity trend.
Of course.
Like Business Insider does those terrific videos on Facebook. But also, we talked a little bit last week's podcast about the launch of Axios. And the whole premise behind Axios being that we can give you content in really bite-sized
short bites.
And reading it in the first few weeks that it's been out, I mean, it's really digestible, no pun intended, but it is. It's easy to read, it's fast, it makes sense.
And that's it. I mean, you used to slog through a cookbook, Julia Child's cookbook and all these ingredients. But show it to me, don't take it. It's just that if that theory is working, show me it, and I'll do it. And people are doing it.
Now, have you ever had any clients that have been featured in those videos or videos like that?
Actually, we're producing a lot of them at Hunter for our client. We just did a big series with Tabasco, one of our clients, where we produced a lot of that content for the Super Bowl to show quick ways to have Super Bowl snacks. That's video is really changing the food game for sure. I mean, it used to be Julia Child 30 minutes on PBS, right? And now with these quick little bites, give me meatball cheese balls in 20 seconds or less, and I'll do it.
Yeah. What sort of results did they expect to get from the video, and then how did it turn out?
Well, I don't really know exactly. I mean, I think the engagement's pretty high. You can see how people linger on that video for longer or watch them all the way through because they don't take up too much time. And the idea is, you show the product in a contemporary way, which I think you get a lot of kudos for because, again, that's how they want their recipes delivered to them. They don't want to open a cookbook. They don't even want to go on a website anymore. They want to see it, show me, show me, show me. Don't tell me, just show me.
Okay. Speaking of food, one thing that I want to bring up, because this was a big and well-read story from this week, was how Chili's decided to let the fictional Pam Beesly back into its restaurant after a number of years. I thought it was a good reaction. I never call it a campaign or an activation, but good fast thinking, I guess you could say.
Very good. Yeah, we were impressed by that too. I mean, she started the story, which was really nice because they didn't push it. It was an organic story that she started with the post of her mug. And then she took the picture of herself. Should I go back in? Should I go in? And, Chili's have admitted they didn't react first, right. Because of course they've got to check with everybody. That's how it goes on internally. Right. Can we react? Do we want to get into this conversation? But they did, and they did it appropriately. Very clever. And, again, I think that's the transparency of brands, right? That's what consumers expect. If Pam's going to say something about you, they actually do want to see what you're going to say back, because that's fun and clever banter. We just had the same situation going on. We just introduced a new cookie for Pepperidge Farm, the Tim Tam. I don't know if you've heard about it. It's an Australian cult favorite. If you're in Australia, you eat Tim Tams. Okay. They're amazing cookies, but Pepperidge Farm has just brought them to the U.S., so we just did the launch of the Tim Tam.
What flavor are they?
Well, they're chocolate, and they're not.
Say no more.
They're not a cookie. They're a biscuit.
Okay.
Okay. It's a grown-up cookie. They're amazing. Once you have one bite, you'll be sold. So we were doing an introduction of them, and we were getting them out there, and then all of a sudden William Shatner found out about it. We had a nice Twitter banter back and forth with him because you want to react to those things because your consumers expect you to be connected to pop culture and connect to what's going on. So if you don't react, it looks like, are they asleep at the switch? Are they just pushing messages and not alive? So I think Chili's was a good example of that too. They really took advantage of that too.
Fun fact about that.
Chili's?
Well, about a specific Chili's. There is no Chili's in Scranton. So.
I'm sorry, Frank.
Yes, I've been missing out all these years.
Yeah.
But
is that why you moved to New York to go to Chili's?
That must have been it. There's one in Wilkes-Barre, but there's not one in Scranton.
Well, maybe they'll react to you now. Maybe they'll send you a tweet. Hey, Frank, we heard you. We're going to open a Chili's.
I'm not as high profile as Pam from the office, though. So.
You never know. I follow you.
We'll see. We'll see. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the news of the week. So let's just throw out a theoretical idea here, and Tabasco is one of your long-term clients. What if Donald Trump was to tweet something to the effect of Tabasco sauce has been totally overcome by Frank's hot sauce, sad? How would you advise Tabasco to respond?
Yeah, I mean...
Or not?
I think if I've learned anything in the last, 6 weeks is, number one, don't get in a war on Twitter with POTUS. I mean, you just don't do it. And, if that's what he wants to say, I mean, he wants to say a lot of things. We know it's not true, whatever, I would advise just let it blow over.
What did you think about the Nordstrom situation?
Yeah, so the story was that, of course, Nordstrom... You decided to no longer carry Ivanka's line.
Right.
Happens in retail all the time. Lines come and go, especially in a retailer like Nordstrom, that's always showing off the latest and the greatest, right? So when they drop a line, and apparently they had told her before, but I guess Mr. Trump didn't believe them and then just decided to tweet not only from his official account as President of the United States, but his own personal account. Again, that's one where I'd have to say, he's crossing the line because you can't really use we tell this to CEOs all the time, you can't really use your professional platform as a way to express your personal beliefs. It's just not good decorum.
And there are some ethics officials and former ethics officials that think you crossed the line with it as well.
Well, the other thing, if you think about it, she had talked about already stepping away from that brand.
Right.
She said, I'm away from that brand anyway. So if you look at the nature of his tweet, was like, oh, you're really hurting Ivanka. Well, why? She's not with the brand anymore, isn't she?
And it's not like she's hurting for money. So.
Well, money or not, the point is she said she's not associating with that brand anymore. So for him to tweet that, oh, you're really hurting her, and by the way, she's really nice or smart, I turned to her, That has nothing to do with it. She's a business person.
Right.
Right? A lot of nice people lose lines at Nordstrom's. It doesn't have anything to do with it.
How did you, what's your take on how Nordstrom really didn't respond? They just sort of let it pass?
They didn't respond on Twitter, which I think was very smart. Mm-hmm. You know, they responded again back saying, look, through this, you know, we had told her the line was underperforming. We're rotating it out. There's still merchandise on the floor, period. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's it. And
what do you think it shows that the stock price of Nordstrom dipped for a while and then shot back up and actually finished with a gain yesterday, the same day the tweet went out?
Yeah, I think there's always that initial reaction, like, you know, but then people recover. You know, when you think about brands stepping into these conversations, right? Did Nordstrom already have the pro-Trump crowd shopping at its store? Maybe not. But eventually, you know, people know what Nordstrom stands for. They do a really great job of promoting their brand and putting out the right merchandise. And I think the shock might affect people right away, but then it settles back into, well, am I really not going to shop at Nordstrom because they're not supporting Ivanka Trump? You know, I think people have time to process, and then the effect normalizes.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this indicates that the Trump Twitter attacks are no longer going to have an impact on brands the way that they were on Ford, say, a couple of months ago, or Toyota, or things like that?
Yeah, I mean, he's normalizing this condition, right? So we had so many of them, and they were, like, unheard of before. Mm-hmm. Now we're becoming desensitized or to them, like, okay, there's another one, there's another one. And, you know, again, I feel like, okay, take a brand like Starbucks, right? So they're supporting, you know, immigration, and because why? Because a lot of their workforce and the people who come there are immigrants and what have you. But they've been supporting that for a long time. Yeah. So for all of a sudden for Starbucks to get boycotted because they say it again, they already lost those people months ago. If those people who are, you know, against immigration, they were not Starbucks anyway. So all of a sudden they say it again, we're going to lose them again. We've never had them. We're speaking to the people that come to our stores and share the same values. Brands can't speak to everybody. It's impossible. Right. You have to speak to the same consumers that share your same values.
Starbucks is an interesting case too, I think, in that you even if you're just a very general news consumer, you probably know what Howard Schultz stands for.
Of course. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like you would expect him to say something. You know, so all of a sudden they say something and consumers are going to, if they didn't like them, they were boycotting them already and not going to their store.
Right.
They've been very clear about and they always are, consistent and clear about what they support.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word normalized before, which I think probably is the early front runner to be 2017's word of the year. Yeah. Merriam-Webster does that at the end of this year.
Well, if you think about it, he's being very true to what he said.
Right.
He's coming in, he's going to shake everything up, do it all differently. That is happening. Everything we're seeing is different. And as communicators, we have to figure out how do we deal with the different. And it's evolving every single day. That's why I like when you guys write things about it, because we're like, oh yeah, that's how we can do it. Or when other people share, oh, I can do it this way. You know.
Though I'll tell you from a news perspective, it is, it's like a schedule wrecker trying to keep up with him on Twitter because it's so incredibly unpredictable. And for a while, the morning tweets seemed to be happening at the same time every day. And
well, that's what he says, that they get up in the morning, he decides what's going to happen that day.
But now it seems that it's a bit more haphazard than it was a couple of weeks ago. So we'll see. I mean, there's no real way to plan.
It's an exciting time for you, too, probably as a journalist, right?
It is. Yes, there is no shortage of stories out there to cover. And frankly, it's interesting too because there's no shortage of communication stories to cover because so much of what this White House is doing is communications driven and it's image driven, and it's image driven in like a personality, a television.
Right.
It's frankly driven in like a reality show host kind of way.
Well, again,
you know, which is his expertise.
That's his expertise, which is, I think, fascinating because we have, you know, deified the reality TV. You know, everybody loves that. You know, I can't watch it, but I'm watching it.
Right.
And he's bringing that to the highest office that had a set of rules, and now it's changing the rules, for good or bad. I don't know.
It is interesting too, though, in that when you are looking at the news agenda for the day, he is swallowing such a huge portion of it. And one thing that I think about is this coming at the expense of business stories?
It actually is, and we saw back to the food study I mentioned before. you know, for 14 years we've been doing this study. For the first time ever, we saw a dip in the interest of food news. And we're like, well, where's the dip in food news? Well, it's being outshouted by all the election news.
Yeah.
So we didn't see people have as much interest as they had in the past with food, but all these other indicators were saying food's really important to me, I follow, but it wasn't as high. So I think it is eclipsing, to your point, a lot of news that may not be breaking through.
It could have some good benefits in a way too. I mean, maybe perhaps more people are going to pay attention to politics than they've been.
Oh, I think it's definitely. Have you heard, I mean, at least among a lot of my friends, they want to turn off Facebook because they're just seeing so much being pushed into their feed that it's almost like being curated, that it's all the news out of the way and nothing that they like to see otherwise.
Right, and I agree with that, but what immediately stuck out to me this election year was how much of it was clearly fake news, in that, you know, how much of things related to Vince Foster, for instance, did you see on your Facebook feed?
Yeah.
And you know, if you keep up on the news, you look at this immediately and go, wow, that's ridiculous. But, you know, how much of an impact is it having in general, you know?
Well,
really
you know, I consider myself a pretty educated person, and there are times where I had to look twice.
Right.
Like, is that, oh, wait, no, and then fact check on my own. But that's my business. You know, someone who's casually going through the headlines might not take that care, but that definitely happens.
But I do think I do think that fake news damaged Facebook's brand among a certain group of people, like the professional set, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know, I think definitely looked at statements by Zuckerberg and Sheryl Sandberg and said they're not taking this seriously enough.
Right.
Does that have any impact on their growth? Well, their earnings are still great. So.
Well, see, that's the problem. I don't think, you know, we've seen any business impact yet. So until that starts happening, I don't know how much, you know, it will stop or, you know, be maligned anymore. It's hard to say.
Right.
It's hard to say.
Right. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thanks for having
us. This is about all we have time for this week, but please join us again next week on the PR Week. Thanks again.